Welcome you to our webinar on growing ginger. As you can see, we're running into some technical difficulties, so we appreciate your patience and working with us. But while we're working on that, just to kind of just introduce you to some of our panelists that will be speaking on this very subject this morning. First, we have Dr. Nadine Burton Stubbs. She is our alternative crop specialist here at the University of Maryland Eastern Shore. She received both her master's and her PhD right here. And she's done quite a bit of work in research involving growing ethnic and specialty crops, as well as production and even some value-added products as well. So we're very pleased to have her as one of our featured speakers. We're also are pleased to have with us one of our researchers and professor, Dr. Lorleen Marsh. She works here in the Department of Agriculture, Food, and Resource Sciences. She also received her PhD from the University of Minnesota. She's done an extensive amount of research in the area of specialty crops, and particularly in organic production or organic culture right here on Delmarva. So we're happy to have her as a panelist as well. And she's going to be sharing with us some of her research in this area of growing organic ginger. And then we have, of course, Mr. Ralph Rack. He is a local grower that's growing ginger. He's going to kind of share with us some of his experiences as well. So with that being said, I know we're already about 10 minutes into the hour of getting started. So I think, Suzanne, are we almost ready to get started?
You know, I think that we should go ahead and get started. Mr. Rack will be joining in, and we'll just take a minute when he comes in to kind of orient him. I think it'll be fine. So yes, let's go ahead and get started.
Okay, all right. So we're going to have first Dr. Lorleen Marsh. She's going to be presenting first. And by way of questions, I'm sure you'll have some questions throughout the presentations that will be featured. For those who have questions, we encourage you to use the Q&A box that you see down to the lower left. And if you just have like any chats that you want to just maybe correspond with us or just greet everyone, let us know where you're from, you can certainly use that chat feature. But both myself and Miss Suzanne Street, our Ag Communication Specialist, will be facilitating the Q&A section, and we'll be helping our presenters to make sure that your questions do get answered. So thank you so much. I think at this time now, we'll go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Marsh.
Okay, thank you, Baron. Without further ado, I'll get into this. The title of my topic here is organic, high tunnel organic ginger, looking at transplant type, fertilizer, and pre-propagation rhizome storage. Organic is the area I've been working in, or one of the areas I've been working in for quite a while. And as I believe some of you already know, certified organic in particular is guided by a lot of guidelines and regulations with the ultimate goal for us to integrate cultural, biological, and mechanical practices to foster cycling of resources and promote ecological balance and conserve biodiversity. As a result of the guidelines, we have certain practices we know that we should avoid. Oh, I'm going back again. Oh, I'm not advancing. Okay. All right, so we also have some practices that we have to avoid if we're doing certified organic, and this is a quick reminder that these guide what we do. We can't use synthetic fertilizers, so if we have issues related to nutrient management for the crops, we need to be very aware of this. No sewage sludge, no irradiation, and no GMOs. So what is the issue here with this particular topic we've been working on? One, we know that we need information on how to grow ginger. ginger is a crop that in its origin comes from subtropical areas. It's widely used globally as a spice crop, a medicinal crop, has a lot of different uses, but our temperature, our weather in this area, the season is shorter, we do have cold, and so that is something we have to be aware of in terms of when we can plant and how long we can plant to get the rhizomes from the crop. Also, as I said earlier, we're guided by regulations, organic regulations. And so we need to test the kinds of nutrients we use to grow the crop. And in Maryland in particular, in some of the areas, we have high phosphorus levels, and based on nutrient regulations and guidelines, if the phosphorus level is too high, you cannot use poultry manure at the extent that you might wish. It would have to be decreased. So we wanted to look at alternate sources also to provide nutrients, organic fertilizer for the ginger, while at the same time following the regulations for National Organic Program and the state guidelines. So we ended up doing 3 things in this to meet this particular goal. Ginger storage is the first thing we wanted to look at. In the early years working with ginger, we had a difficult time getting rhizomes that did not get infected with pathogens. And so some years ago, we ended up tissue culturing some, and we tend to use just our stock that we have. So we wanted to look at comparing the post-harvest storage of the rhizomes in 2 different kinds of containers. We wanted also to assess the methods for seedling production in the greenhouse. And lastly, test the effects of the transplant types we have, the storage method, and the kinds of fertilizer we use to grow them in the high tunnel. So looking at the first objective, post-harvest storage, we use 2 different types of storage containers. Flats, these are regular flats or trays. They are widely used for seedlings for many areas, very amenable to this kind of storage. And also we use pans. These we buy locally, and the certain weight of the rhizome is stored in the pan. In this case, approximately 8 pounds each time of the rhizome is stored in the pan. And we keep them in these pans. We do have them covered. We don't want them to lose moisture, so they are kept covered. In the case of the ones in the flats, they are covered with an additional layer of paper towel and then another container turned upside down over it, and it stays there for a month or 2 in storage until we're ready to use it. In the case of the one in the pan, we do cover these with foil, punch holes in it so we don't have a humid environment to generate microorganisms such as fungi to make them rot. Under the storage conditions, this is kind of what we have when we do this practice. The temperatures under those containers, looking at the storage flats and looking at the pans, we see that it rises to a reasonable level, fine. It goes up to about a little over 20 degrees C in the flat, about the same thing in the pan, similar. And also the lower temperatures, the minimum temperatures go down to something a little over 10. So the temperature conditions in both kinds of containers are similar. The humidity in the room where they're kept is between 10 and 48%. So what happens after the storage time? We're interested in checking that they have not dehydrated a lot, that they have not lost a lot of moisture. So we check the weight loss in storage. And here is an illustration of what we have seen. This is for 2 different years. What we see here is that the ones in the pan tend to trend where the pan loses a little less moisture. The ginger, the rhizomes in the pan lose a little less moisture than the ones in the flat. This is the 2019 year. The following year, we did the same thing, and we also see that kind of trend. It's not significant, but it's a trend that the ones in the pan lose a little less moisture. Buds, goal of having these is that we want them to have buds so that we can turn them into seedlings when we put them in the greenhouse. And the bud numbers, again, we look at, seems to have a trend here. The ones in the pan tend to have a little more buds than the ones in the flat, and pan and flat, a little higher in the pan, a little lower in the flat. So the next objective is to look at what do we do with these after we take them to the greenhouse and we do seedling production. And in the greenhouse, they're placed in these same types of covered flats, but we cover each flat with a plastic dome to keep the moisture, to keep that humidity. And they can be in the greenhouse anytime from a month to 2 or a little over 2 months. And very important and very critical when we put them in the greenhouse is we want the temperature to be warm so that they will start to sprout even more and that shoots will grow from them. So we do monitor the temperature because the temperature has a big effect on this. And in this case, this is just an illustration for 1 year of what happens under this dome when we do this practice. We see here, and this is in degrees centigrade, that the temperatures can get quite warm, not good if it gets too high and they are already growing seedlings. But we do have a range in the nights because it gets down to somewhere between 12 and 20. The concern here is this warmer temperature. It is spring, they are in the greenhouse. So we do usually visually monitor them, and we can tell that the temperature is too high when we see seedlings growing and butting against the top of this container and starting to look like they're going to turn brown. When that happens, it's time to take these covers off. Otherwise, our little baby seedlings will cook and perish. Objective 3, now we have our seedlings, is we're going to put them in the high tunnel and test the effects of, we say, the nutrients so that we have something that is acceptable for the organic practice. So we test the effects of the fertilizer. We also look at whether if the rhizome storage type has any effect on how they do in the tunnel. And we also look at transplant type. The materials that we have generated in the greenhouse, the seedlings, we look at if that makes a difference. They're planted 2 feet apart in rows 8 inches deep in the tunnel, and they're mounded when new rhizomes are visible sometime later. We do drip irrigate. The fertilizers we have looked at, and these are acceptable based on organic practices or certified organic practices. We look at Nature Safe and Vitamin, and they are applied at a rate of 120 pounds per acre for nitrogen and 160 pounds per acre for potassium. We do split applications, I believe. Okay. The transplants, we use 3 different types of transplants. We have some which have more than 1 shoot. In this case, something like this, it has 1, 2. This one has 3 shoots coming from it. 3 or more shoots coming from them. Then this is also generated from a larger piece, which has been propagated in the greenhouse, 60 to 120 grams. Then we also have a different type, single shoot seedlings. These are from pieces that were smaller they are only producing generally just one single shoot. And then we have another type, which has not been generating seedlings, but it's simply just the pieces that have been cut. They are 60 to 120 grams, same size as the multi-seedling ones, but we have not generated seedlings from them. They're trying to sprout here. So 3 transplant types is what we have. Looking at how they do in the tunnel, when ginger is grown in the tunnel, each clump that is planted produces lots of shoots. We call them tillers. And we look at the average number of tillers for each clump. And this shows here the range of number of tillers that we get. We can get anything from a little over 6 tillers per clump per plant up to over 14 tillers. And the number of tillers has a relationship generally to the amount of rhizomes they produce. The next slide, besides tillers, we look at the height. In the high tunnel, they grow up to a little over 50 centimeters and not a lot of variation, but these are the kinds of results we see when we test these different combinations in the Nature Safe and the vitamin and the pan and the different pieces. Looking at the end here, after a few months, and generally it's around 5 months, there's frost, and when it gets too cold in the tunnel, then we harvest them. And this is the kinds of weight we get from them. This is the weight per treatment combination. There is a range. Findings, the pan storage tends to lower moisture loss of the stored rhizomes, but this is not significant. The plants produce about 6 to 14 tillers per plant. We do have the multi-shoot transplants, which produce more rhizomes than the single shoot ones. And there's really not a noticeable effect of the fertilizer on the rhizome yield. Acknowledgements, Brett Smith, and I hope he's on here listening, was able to get on. Several students also work on this project, and the funds from USDA Van Zalen project support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Marsh. We actually have some questions from our participants. So if I can go through them, would that be okay?
Sure.
All right. So our first question comes in from Jeremiah Moen. Hi, Jeremiah. The question is, being a rhizome, does ginger have issues with harmful nematodes, or do the alkaloid compounds keep them away from it?
When you look at the information globally, because ginger is grown in many places over the world, the rhizomes do have had problems, have seen with nematodes. We have not had any problems with nematodes, but yes, ginger, in addition to nematodes and other kinds of organisms that can cause disease or damage, yes.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Marsh, for that. And while I get ready for the next question to ask, if you can remove your PowerPoint screen so Dr. Burton can go ahead and have her PowerPoint set up, that would be great. Okay, thank you.
I just did.
Okay, so the next question that's coming in, this is from Pete Zizos. Hi, Pete. Do you cut the rhizomes by the buds before planting for seedlings?
That would be by the buds. If we're looking at the third treatment we have, which is just the rhizomes alone, we generally had those cut and they didn't have buds, but they develop buds after. So they do, if the question is asking, do they have buds on them? Yes. They do have buds on them, but it's not necessarily that we cut them looking for buds. The weight determined that they would have. With the weights we have been using, yes.
Okay, thank you, Pete. Hopefully that answered your question. If it didn't, or you needed some more clarification, you can certainly add it into the Q&A. Okay, well, I do not see any additional questions. So at this time, we will go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Nadine Burton, and she's going to be sharing with you some of our more recent experiences in growing ginger here at our Extension Demonstration Farm. Dr. Burton?
Thank you, Mr. Rogers, and thank you, Dr. Marsh. And before I go into my presentation, I must say the demonstration farm or the small farm team, our plan is to work with our researchers, and I'm happy that Dr. Marsh came on because I model a number of things that she did. And so today you will see me doing something differently from what Dr. Marsh did. But our goal as Extension is to bring the research to the farmers. So you may not see mine in so much detail, but I will go ahead and just show you what we have done. So here within this region, ginger is mainly grown and used as baby ginger because of the short growing seasons that we have. And so I tend to model Dr. Rafi's and Dr. Marsh. I mix everybody's combination. I listen to them, I go about, and then I try to see how best can we grow ginger to a mature stage. And so with Dr. Rafi's method in growing in containers, last year, I got pieces of ginger from Dr. Marsh, pieces of gingers from Dr. Rafi, and of course, Ralph Rock is on and he'll speak after me. So I have a combination of different ginger. And so we use Dr. Rafi's method and grow them into use a 3:1 ratio with the BX55 Pro Mix to 1 ratio mushroom compost. And we mix these, we grow them in grow bag right at the bottom of my screen. This is a type of bag that we use and the place that we purchased the bag. And so we planted our ginger on the 16th of April. And as you can see here, we put them in the incubation bin. I did not wait until they start shooting like Dr. I did not wait for them to start making shoot. I went ahead and put them in, and so we planted them May 29th, which would be late compared to Dr. Rafi's procedures, because he get them started in January, and so he can have them going for a longer time. However, so this is the grow bag here with our 3:1 ratio of potting mix and mushroom compost. And when we planted them, we put them outdoors and we placed them on pallets. One of the reasons for that, and I heard someone ask about rhizome, not rhizome, but nematodes. And that's one of the reasons for nematodes and fungus or pathogen which would be in the soil. So we place them on this pallet to protect them from that. We use split application. This is Dr. Rafi's method, but we only do this twice. We did it 2 weeks after planting and then 6 weeks afterward. At the side, I did not have a picture, but at the side of this, we put up shade cloth to provide them with supplemented shade, because ginger does not do well in sun, in all day sun. So we try to give them some shade. Dr. Rafi used corn. I wasn't able to plant the corn, so I went ahead and buy shade cloth and did that. Now, we water just when it need water because we didn't want to overwater it. And as for other fertilizers, we use 2020 every 2 weeks interval for the first 3 months. So the ginger plants were transferred to the greenhouse. So we have them growing outside from May until October. Then we take them in our greenhouse because they at that time they were not fully matured, and I didn't want to harvest them as immature ginger. I want to see how long we could keep them going. So we transferred them in our greenhouse and care for them until harvesting. So here, we harvest our ginger 8 months later. So we harvest our ginger 8 months after planting, which brings us to January. And so this video, you will see me harvesting our ginger.
To see what the yield is. These ginger were planted in May of 2020, and we brought them inside. We brought them inside so we can extend the growing season. So they are approximately 8 months old right now. So let us see what the ears look like. So you see, I'm removing the soil because I can use it for my next set of ginger. See, and that's one of the beautiful things with growing them in this grow media or in this container gardening system, because this soil can be used for the next crop of ginger. You see, this is the baby. This is what started all of this. So we didn't have a large amount last year when we started it. Wow. Wow. But look, we put some small pieces in. And so what I'll do for the next season is to weigh the pieces that are planted and then look at the ears that we get. And this is really looking good. Right? This is really looking good. These rhizomes are nice size. Nice size rhizomes. Okay. So what I'll do, I'm gonna let these dry out a little, and of course I'm gonna replant them. The plant material, the roots that I'm removing, can always die down and contribute to the fertility of the growing media. Because of course these have excess nutrients in them, and so they will contribute to the next set of plants that we're going to happen. All right, so to make sure, I'm going through now to search to make sure it's just roots and not rhizomes. So yes, all of this that is left is basically roots. Now, I can add this basket. And what I do during season, because there were no fungus or soil pathogen, I'm gonna add some more compost to this and replant some of the rhizomes after we wash, clean them, and let the dry out a little. Then we're gonna plant them. But what I do, I weigh this and just to see what the weight is compared to what I planted. So that's
All right, so when we weighed the ginger, the average yield per bag was 3 pounds. And of course, as I mentioned, we kept our plant media for this year.
fine.
Okay, so this year, our planting date was February 12th. We harvest January 29th. And we did not let it dry out. I went ahead and just washed and placed them in the incubator in those trays. And 2 weeks after we harvest them. And this year we weigh them because based on other researchers, the size of the rhizome depending on the amount that you can get. So this year we have 3 different separate weights. We have 272, 181, and 91 grams. And this will give us some information that we'll pass on to our growers at the end of the year. So grow bag was labeled and in order for us to observe the difference. Some bags were not harvested and we are keeping them as raccoon plants. And so we'll have information to give you on them.
So right now,
So
this is our old plant medium from last growing season. We have topped it up with some compost in the same some media in the same ratio, 3 to 1. I'll explain that further. You will see that in the presentation. So we'll remove our ginger plantlet from the incubating bin, and then this, unlike last time we plant smaller pieces, but this is 0.2 pounds. This weighs 0.2 pounds. And this was planted in January. And so now, I think January month end to be exact. And so now we are going to plant it in our container garden. And yes, you don't have to wait until it put on shoot. You don't have to incubate it. You can always plant it as is before, but you have to set it a little earlier. So here we're gonna put it down and make sure that your roots are set nicely, and then you cover lightly, right? And so that's it. We move to the next one. So all that I'm planting today, they are weighing 2.2 pounds. That's what they weighed when we put them in the incubator to start sprouting. So now they're sprouting nicely, and we are setting them in their permanent place. So there. So right now, we are just planting out the ones that are really sprouting today. We'll come back next time and finish it. And there's no one way, as I said earlier, to plant your ginger. You know, you can plant it just as a piece of ginger, provided it have the right temperature. You can just get a ginger like this, and you can plant it, providing you have right temperature, moisture, and good growing condition, it will sprout. Okay, so this is what so with this year, we start March, and we want you to grow with us. We'll keep you abreast of how we are growing, where we at, and every stage. Okay, so right now.
All right, so that was it for me. And if you have any question, I'll take those.
Yes, Dr. Burton, we do have a few questions that have come in. I was waiting for a break to
Mhm.
come in with the questions. So the first question I'll go ahead and go to, I believe this is Basim. He asked the question, how was the drainage issue in those growing bags?
Oh, that was good. These bags has an area at the bottom, not the immediate bottom that the bag sits on, but right at the side at the bottom where it is sort of thin out. So when you water, it drains very well. It drains very well, and they are durable. As you can see, we planted last year and we're still going this year in them.
Okay, good. Our next question that's come in, what was the mushroom medium used?
Oh, we got this mushroom from Pennsylvania. We have a handout at that. We can definitely post it and they can see what it is made up of.
Okay, and maybe that information can also be put up on our website if anybody wants to know, where you source the
That's,
mushroom medium from.
that's exactly what I'm thinking. So we can put it up on the website so people could go back and see.
Okay, all right, good. Moving to the next question. This is coming in from Orr. Let's see, can you transplant the ginger in the ground and overwinter outside of a high tunnel as if it's a perennial and have it come back the next season?
I have never done that. What happened to me last year? I leave my ginger in the high tunnel and I was able to remove them and replant. So it is possible. It is possible. It depends on maybe how long it's out in the cold or how cold that season is. But it is possible because if you notice, if you keep your ginger in a fridge, it will come right back after a time. You put it out and it will sprout. Because that's one of the beautiful thing about growing it and having it for mature ginger, because the shelf life is longer and they can withstand different temperatures.
Okay, all right, thank you. And another question that has come in, what does being grown at the raccoon plant mean?
Ratoon mean annual plant. It's like it's an annual plant, but you did not harvest it in that 1 year and you just allow it to grow again for the second year.
Okay, good. Next question just come in. What requirement, shade cloth do you use?
Okay, so we use a 25% shade cloth last year on the outside. And when we moved the ginger inside, we did cover our greenhouse with 25% shade.
Okay. All right, I believe that answers that question.
Okay, so is Mr. Rolf in? Good, so I'm gonna show your slides now.
Okay.
Good, so that's your first slide.
Let me give you why I grow baby ginger. I'm a pharmacist by trade, so I've been very interested in ginger for many years. I started growing it over 10 years ago. One of the benefits of baby ginger, essentially, it has a high phenolic content and antioxidant activity. It's much higher in baby ginger. As the ginger matures, decreases the activity of the antioxidants in mature ginger. So there's much benefits in growing baby ginger for the consumer, but it's very costly. So people need to be educated on baby ginger, the benefits of baby ginger. Some of the benefits of baby ginger, it has antioxidants activity, anti-inflammatory activity, similar to non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. It has antimicrobial activity, anti-obesity, anti-nausea, which is very, I believe more people know about the anti-nausea activities of ginger than any other herb out there. Cardiovascular protection effects of respiratory disorders, anti-cancer activity, anti-diabetic disorder, neurotoxicity, neuroprotection. I went to, I guess, New York City probably about 12 years ago, and I saw the price of ginger in New York City at $21, $22 a pound. I said, this is incredible, and it sounded like cupcakes. So I said, I need to look into this. So I started, it was very difficult trying to find seed rhizomes in the very beginning, 10, 15 years ago or so. But I was able to find some sources in North Carolina, then another source later came on in Hawaii, then some other additional sources. Since baby ginger takes less time to grow and harvest, 7 to 8 months compared to mature ginger, which takes 10 to 12 months, it grows very well in this area of the United States. But the crop must be sold close to home. It does not store very well. I only have, when I take it to the market, I only have a 2-week shelf life. People like to see it fresh, and after 10 days, it starts showing some wear and tear. The consumers tend to not to purchase it at that time. There are certainly some challenges growing baby ginger in the non-tropical areas such where we live now. And over the years, I think I figured out some of those obstacles from lessons learned. I guess the most important was seed selection. I have been able to get some seeds from Hawaii, which were cell tissue cultured. And no matter what the size of the rhizome, I seem to get good production from those seeds. And it seems like since they're grown from tissue culture, it gives them much more protection from the different growing issues. So seed selection is very important. For some time, I've been treating some of my seeds, my rhizomes, with Mycozeb 0.3% to protect it from some Fusarium and Pythium software. And I had some success with that, but I did not want to use too much chemicals since I was trying to make it more organic. So I had tried to experiment with that, and it did give me some benefits. Then lastly, I tried the rhizome hot water treatment, where I heated the rhizomes for 124 degrees for 10 minutes. And that gave me some protection also. So I had some good success with that, but I was very leery about putting the rhizome in that high temperature water for more than 10 minutes. So I did not want to destroy it. Another lessons learned was the proper drainage. Like Nadine said, the drainage bags are very good. I have not used the bags. I use the black containers. And I do not elevate my black containers, so that might be one of the problems. I'm having some difficulties with some of my plants. I use a sandy soil mixture, which is made out of leaf grow and pine bark fines, which seem to be very good for the ginger that I'm growing without too much water accumulation around the roots to cause any type of rot. And I also mound, as the ginger grows, I do some mounding to improve the drainage around the ginger plant. The third issue is the crop rotation. For some years, I used pods 2 or 3 years. It seems like for some reason I do get more disease after I use it more than 2 years. So in the last couple of years, I essentially have been just using it 1 year and getting new soil mixture, which consists of leaf grow and pine bark fines. And that seems to give me a better production. I have between 3 to 8 pounds production out of each pot. And then lastly was essentially the shade and windbreak. Ginger is fairly sensitive. Windy day could break the stem, so I do give the ginger the shade and windbreak. So the 4 issues was the seed selection, proper drainage, crop rotation, new soil each year, and the shade and windbreak for the plants. Growing baby ginger can prove profitable. It's selling for about between $5 and $10 a pound at the market. Compared with traditional small scale farming like tomatoes or sweet potatoes, would sell between $2 and $1.50 a pound. Baby ginger can offer the farmers some opportunity for greater profit per acre per production area. My production results have shown that ginger plants have the potential of producing, as I said, 3 to 8 pounds of marketable ginger, depending on the production techniques, including fertilizer, using proper irrigation, and seeds management. Baby ginger is usually harvested and marketed in September through December. The market potential is considered is very Larry, they're not familiar with the product, so you might have to get some free samples on it. Baby ginger needs to be discovered by the consumer. It's a new item, so it's once people see it, they come back on a yearly basis and ask for it. So, but it's an educational process. It's only been available in the past few years where people were able to see the benefits, and I think there's more and more information now shared about the benefits of ginger in the news media. So it's becoming very publicly aware to consumers, but it's essentially the price is much higher for this baby ginger. So we need to definitely educate the consumer of the benefits compared to the more mature ginger. So if there's any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
Thank you, Ralph. We certainly appreciate that for sharing your experiences and lessons learned. Actually, growing it on your farm operation. We did have a question come in. I believe Dr. Burton was typing in an answer for one, but for the benefit of everyone who's attending, just in case if they can't see the question, what's the difference? And I guess this question can be for you, Ralph, or it can be for Dr. Burton, or as well as Dr. Marsh. So I guess at this time we can have all three to chime in, but Ralph, I'll let you go first. What's the difference? One question that's come in, what's the difference between baby ginger and mature ginger? Now, it seems like I can probably answer that question, but I'm going to leave it to the experts.
Baby ginger looks so pretty. It's a beautiful plant. Once you see it, and essentially when you sell it with a stem on it. So it's a very attractive herb that people's eyes go to it, and right away they, what is this? And it smells so fresh, and it just, the consumer looks at it and they want to try it, but essentially making sure it's fresh. That's, and since it has such a short shelf life, we want to keep it on the market, within 5 to 7 days, so it has that freshness look to it.
Thanks, Ralph. Dr. Burton or Dr. Marsh?
It also has a lot less fiber than the mature ginger, which is the reason why it's used so fresh and in so many culinary areas. You can easily slice it, whereas the fibrous one is different. And when it becomes mature, when the plant becomes mature, it has a lot more fiber.
Appreciate that. And that actually follows up on this next question. Is baby ginger good for extractions, or do extractions differ between baby and mature ginger?
Extractions? Can we get some clarification?
Okay. While they're working on perhaps giving us some clarification on that, we'll go to the next question, okay? The next question comes in, what is an optimal pH for growing ginger?
Optimal pH for growing ginger is around 6 to 6.5.
Okay, thank you. And for any of our panelists or speakers, if you want to show your video, you can. Of course, it's not mandatory, but the next question then, can the stem be used or sold separately?
Generally, well, I'm talking about the mature here. And some time ago, we were doing some work with antioxidants with another researcher at the university here. And I did find out that in some places that they use the leaves can also be used in teas. The rhizomes, many people use, one of the ways they can use it is in teas. And we did find out that in some countries, people use the leaves to make a tea.
Thank you, Dr. Marsh. Appreciate that. And going back then for the clarification on that on that previous question about the extractions. We're talking about like alcohol tinctures or oil extractions.
Most likely, the immature ginger, baby ginger, would be easier because, and then you will have less fiber, as Dr. Marsh mentioned. And if you're looking for antioxidant properties, as Mr. Rock suggests, then most likely the immature ginger will bring you more of that.
Okay. All right, thank you. I'm just going through just to make sure I'm not missing any other questions. How does the flavor compare? I guess between the both.
Dr. Marshall, want to go?
I don't know.
Okay, so
I have never used the baby ginger. I use the mature ginger.
I've used both, and I don't know if it's because of culture, because I grew up using mature ginger. I'm really not getting that zest out of the baby ginger when I add it to my meat, etc. For this ginger that we do in the high tunnel, I washed and took a bite out of it, and honestly, it feels like Scotch bonnet pepper. So, and I don't get that from baby ginger. One of the things I was sharing with Ralph last night was I had a piece of ginger over a year now, baby ginger. They washed it and they packaged it nicely, and I kept it in the fridge. And it still looked like it was yesterday. So, but I don't think it has the flavor as the mature ginger.
Thank you, Dr. Burton and Dr. Marsh. The next question that we have, and we have about 3 minutes before our session ends. Can you freeze baby ginger for later use?
Yes, a lot of consumers essentially freeze it. They essentially put in ice cube trays and freeze it, and then bring it out as they need it for food preparation. So it's quite common for people to grind a baby ginger, put it in the ice cube trays, freeze it, and then use it for cooking and then after whenever they need it. So I have a lot of people to do that with the baby ginger.
Thanks, Ralph. Next question. I'm not 100% sure, but mature to juvenile. Maybe if we can get a little bit of clarification on that. Oh, we have one question. How about, I guess, ginger for juicing?
The baby ginger has quite a bit of juice to it, where the mature ginger is not as, the liquid is not as, I guess it's more of a drier content, where the baby ginger has much more fluid to it. So if you're juicing, it would be a very good way to make a ginger juicing compound, but it's a little more expensive. That's why a lot of people just use the mature ginger for making any type of juicing, because it's not as expensive. But baby ginger does have increased fluids as a result of its water content.
Thank you. And I believe some clarification on that mature to juvenile. They were asking about the flavor.
Yeah, the baby ginger has, I don't know what the time frame between juvenile, baby, and mature ginger is, but mature ginger is what you buy in a store, at your grocery store. Baby ginger has a complete different appearance to it. Juvenile, I don't know what I'm not familiar with the definition of a juvenile. Roger.
Okay, let me see if I can respond to that. Okay, so baby ginger is ginger harvest maturely. Mature ginger is the one that goes through right to senescence. And some ginger varieties are 8 months. It takes them 8 months to mature. Some it takes 10, some it takes 11, some takes 12. So for us to get mature ginger at 8 months, it tells us that either the growing system that we put in place and able to get that ginger at 8 months mature, or this or our ginger is basically not 8 months long. It could be possible that it's 11-old or 12-month maturity, but maybe because of the environment speed it up. I don't know. But it cannot be the length of time when I look at Rafi, I look at the to determine how long to keep them to become immature, or how long to keep them to say they are mature. You have
Dr. Burton, thank you for responding to that question. However, I noticed I was getting an echo as you were speaking, and I was having difficulty hearing your full response, and maybe some of our participants were experiencing the same thing. So maybe what we can do is some of those questions that were put in the Q&A section, we will try to make sure that we will have you answer, just kind of repeating what was already stated by our presenter. And hopefully within the next couple of weeks, we will have the recorded presentation uploaded on our website. So if you register for this webinar, you will receive a notification once that is available for you to view on our website. So at this time, I just want to thank all of our panelists, Dr. Burton, Dr. Marsh, and our local grower, Ralph. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to share information about growing ginger, and hopefully those who have attended have certainly increased their knowledge of growing ginger and maybe perhaps thinking about doing it themselves. So thank you so much for attending, and we look forward to seeing you in the near future when we have another webinar, or hopefully when the pandemic restrictions start to die down a little bit more. We would love to see you out at our registration farm in the near future. So thank you so much for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you again next time. Thank you all.